So, another rainy day in Florida, and we had to do something to keep ourselves busy. Like any responsible 30-something-year-old man, when wife and kids are out of town, I tell my mom to come over. So, and I put her to work. So today, we are going to build a couple of these Hive bodies. We're gonna put some of these frames together, foundationless like I do. And we are also going to assemble some bottom boards, how I do it. And it's all designed to be pretty cheap. We'll see how it goes. We got Tony, already ready to work. And we also got Marlo, of course, not ready to work at all. So the first step is to apply lots of glue to these joints. We want them to hold really well. The dovetail joints hold well to begin with, but just so we don't have any creaking or giving, we're going to glue them really well. We originally started trying to use screws, but I did not have enough of the right kind of screws to do this with. So we decided to go with spiral, some people call them ring shank nails, and they work a lot better. They hold in, and with the glue and putting as many nails as we do, especially with this dovetail joint, nails are perfect. So skipped ahead some. We're just kind of finishing up these joints. The whole time I'm wanting to make sure it's square as we nail through it. Just as a little check, want to make sure Marlo's doing okay over there. Yep, same position as he was 10 minutes ago, so we're good there. And now back to the project. So this extra glue coming out of the side is actually what we want. After checking it for square, making sure it's all right, I will eventually use that rag to clean up all the leftover glue, just so it's not causing a mess or it's hard to paint over. So again, it should stay pretty square with how these dovetail joints are set up, but it's just good to check for good measure because you're going to be stacking these boxes on top of each other. So you want to make sure that they're all level. In the past, I've made my own hive bodies, but with the price of lumber, it just doesn't make sense for me to do that anymore. I called Dadant in High Springs, and they had really good prices on it. I think these were about $12.50 each for the budget. They have some knots and everything in them, but they're really worth what they cost. And here's Mom working the next day, painting the boxes. She likes to lay down on the job sometimes, but she does really well. Here's all the measurements for the bottom board that I use. This is for one bottom board. I save time by not having you guys watch me cut these out. That smallest one is for the entrance reducer, and also, of course, we always have Tony to help us with the job. So here it's time to build the bottom boards. So always make sure everything's square. I'll usually put a tack in there and just to make sure everything's good, and then I'll nail the rest of it off. I like to use lots of glue just to help these stay together over time, especially them being out in the weather. And it's just very easy and simple, I think, to build these. These are completely made out of 2 1x3s. If you see some of the browner wood that I'm using for the sides upcoming, that is some extra cedar I had that I wanted to use up. But again, these are very simple and easy to make. I think the cost of the 1x3s, which are about $2 to $3 each, is well worth the time to do these. So in a minute, I'll be putting on the screen onto the bottom board once I get all these boards assembled. I like to have it cut so it goes from side to side and from the back almost all the way up to the front. I leave a little gap so that entrance reducer on the front won't be hindered by the metal on the bottom. So you'll see what I mean when I get a little further. To get a little tighter, you can make these boards I'm putting in now like 6 and an 1/8 if you want to make it so they don't have the gaps in them. So here in Florida, most people use the screen bottom boards. If you don't, or if you live further up north, or you just don't like to use the screen bottom boards, you can always, instead of the wire, just put a piece of plywood in there. And the plywood will essentially make it so it's more insulated and maybe a little bit easier for beekeepers up north to keep their bees alive during winter. That's not too much of a concern. In fact, in Florida, we want to make sure that there's a way for all the moisture to escape, because it's always humid here in Florida. And the moisture is what will kill the bees during the winter for us. In fact, as an experiment a couple years ago, I covered my screen bottom boards with some clear plastic, and I noticed that there was actually the plastic on the bottom was actually holding water inside the beehive. So I learned from then on, we don't really need to cover the bottom of the beehives where I'm living at in North Florida, even during the 30-something degrees that we get during the winter. It's just as long as you have enough bees, they keep everything warm. They actually do a really good job. All right, lots of glue around the sides. I even like that glue to kind of seep down into that screen that I have on there. And I put these side pieces on there to hold the screen down. Plus, if the screens ran all the way across, it just keeps everything nice and level, and that's how we need this to be, because there's going to be the bee boxes sitting on top of it. Yeah, if you can see all the way towards the right, that screen gives it about 1.5 inches towards the edge, and that's what we want, so the entrance reducer can just slide up there and not be hindered by the thickness of the screen, because even that little bit of thickness is enough to throw the hive body when you set it down at a level. So it's important before we start building this that you do want to measure your hive bodies and make sure you're building the bottom board to fit the hive bodies. Having a standard size for your apiary is a good idea. It's something I'm trying to work on since, like I said, now I bought some Dadant hive bodies, and in the past I've made my own. So just standardizing everything makes your equipment usage a lot easier. So now that the bottom board is ready, let's start the foundationless frames. So like many things with beekeeping, you ask different beekeepers and they all do things a little differently. I use wooden strips as a starter strip for mine, just like I do for my top bars, just because it's cheap. I can run them down my table saw and it's all fun. Some people will cut down pieces of that plastic foundation and just 1 inch or so of that and use that as a starter strip. That's another option. Again, I feel like that costs a little bit of money and I'm trying to save as much as I can. And this is just the simplest way for me to do it. So as I put these frames together, definitely want to make sure they're square. Everything inside this Langstroth beehive is built to use that 3/8 inch bee space. So if it's a little bit out of square, it doesn't give the bees the adequate space between the hive body wall and the frame. So let's just be careful that they're all square. All right, here's the hive we've been working on. Basically it consists of a bottom board, a hive body, and a cover, or whatever. These have different names. So this cover, it's just waterproof plywood. I bought it from a beekeeper in Jacksonville for $5. So I just got several of these at one time. So we got a $5 piece. It's a cover, good enough to keep the water and rain out of it. Next, we have all the frames I built yesterday. So these are foundationless frames. And why I like using these, one, you save money on the foundation, but also the bees are able, just like in a top bar, to build the natural size comb that they want. And another reason why a lot of people I've heard some people switching these for their brood boxes, so where the queen lays eggs, is if there's any queen cells in here, you can just take a knife and cut out the queen cell and move it to a new hive. If it's plastic foundation, I mean, besides using a Dremel or something, you can't really cut that out. So I use these for my honey supers also. I just cut all the honey out of it, smash it in a bucket, and then strain it through cheesecloth into basically the honey jars. And I can do a video later on showing that. So I have 10 of these foundationless frames in the box in this deep hive body. So on the bottom, I have the bottom board. This was the extra piece I didn't really explain too well. This is how I do my entrance reducers. It just makes it so the bees only have this little area to defend. If the colony is really strong, you can take that out. You can cut this in half and put only half of it in there. So then, you know, they just have less of an entrance. If you want to get fancy, you can cut it to where it fits the whole thing and do like the ones that you buy and just kind of cut out a few little spaces on here, different sizes, and that'll be good too. As you can see, I don't mind paint getting in here. It doesn't really affect the bees. I do like to staple close to these sides, so this is a little more firm. And that's also why I like to run this metal all the way to the edges and then staple it down. It really holds this screen in really tight. Reason that I have this, and I did paint it also in case any water splashes in here, is so the entrance reducer fits snug there. If it's on the wire, you can see it's a little bit above there, and if the hive body's sitting on this, then it's not gonna sit flush. So just to kind of keep it off this wire, I just leave this space open. Then entrance reducer fits fine. Another feature I've learned to do is on the bottom. Before, you can see maybe in some of the other videos, I used to do the 1x3s here on top, and then essentially these would be on top. But why I like it this way more is so this hive can fit on different size hive stands. So it's kind of like a ski. No matter what size hive stand you put it on, it's gonna fit and it's gonna sit pretty level. So that's essentially the hive I have. I think I calculated I have about $34 in this hive. So that is pretty inexpensive, and that's how I prefer to do things. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for watching. I just want to say it's been really fun making these bee videos and editing them. It takes a little bit of time, but still learn as I learn more, get faster and faster at it. Also, like I said, really appreciate you guys subscribing and throwing in comments. It means a lot. So if there's anything you think I could do to make this better, or anything you want to see, let me know. I'm open to all of those comments. Really want to build backyard beekeeping. That's, I don't know, there's always room for one more beekeeper, always need for more pollination and more just general knowledge about bees. So again, if you guys have any questions, throw them in, and love you guys. See y'all next time, and thank you again for watching.